I'm Mrs. Carol May. I was born in 1954, and my original pension age of 60 was moved to 63 and then to 66 without any warning at all. So I am giving testimony on behalf of all the women like me who have suffered financially, emotionally, and physically, really, with our health as a result of that.
Good. Thank you, Mrs. May. Carol, I'd like to ask first, could you please confirm that you have signed the consent form and read the privacy documents and agree for this recording to be used for the purposes of the CEDAW People's Tribunal?
Yes, I have.
Great. Thank you. Good. And now to the first question. Could you please tell us what you knew or how you found out about the deferrals of the state pension age under the State Pension Act of 1995?
I actually learned when I was 59 through a lady that I worked with at the time who was also my age. We were discussing retiring, and she said, "Oh, we don't get our pension at 60 anymore." And that's the first I'd heard of anything like that. I had just assumed that everything would be as I expected it to be. And after my divorce, it's what I needed it to be.
Right. And so did you ever hear from the government? Did any notification ever come from government or the Department of Works and Pensions, for example, about this deferral?
No, none at all.
Right. So, well, one might say not right. So what impact, if any, has this deferral had upon you financially?
Well, financially, it meant that I had to keep working. I had expected that money in order to be able to have a place of my own to live in, because at the time when I was age 59, I was actually homeless and bankrupt. And so I was living with my son's neighbours, very kindly, who I didn't know before I moved into their house. And I couldn't afford, on what I was earning part-time, I couldn't afford the local rent at all on any place, not even a one-bedroom flat. So I needed that pension money in order to pay rent.
And can I ask, what was your paid employment before you retired?
At that time, I am actually qualified as an eating disorders therapist and weight loss counsellor. But because I had a nervous breakdown following my divorce, I actually wasn't able to work with clients. I wasn't safe to work with clients. So I had taken a job at a doctor's surgery as an admin and receptionist. And it was only part-time, and the doctor gave me as many hours as he could. And I covered for all of the other ladies when they went on holiday. So I did have extra hours periodically, but basically it was part-time.
Thank you. Thank you. And has this impacted on you in any other way, this change to the pension age?
Oh, I think on my mental health hugely, because, you know, I was trying to recover from the end of a very long marriage where I had come out with nothing. I was, as I say, bankrupt and homeless, and I had had a breakdown, and I was having counselling through the NHS, But this just kind of tipped me over the edge again, really. And I felt helpless. I felt discarded. I felt unwanted. I felt invisible, really, to society. And to be honest, most of the people I knew, because I come from middle class, educated, well-educated and professional background. That's my family background. And our expectations, my expectations were always that I would have a decent retirement. And that is what my ex-husband and I had planned, but I lost it.
And so what is your view of the way that the government handled these changes to the pensions retirement age for women?
I believe that the view of the politicians concerned was that we as mere women would not complain. They assumed that we would be like their wives are, which means that we would all have husbands who would provide for us. But we are independent women. Many of us are single or divorced. And we are in that place where, you know, I wasn't allowed a bank account without my father's permission when I was a teenager and older. You know, I could not have bought a house on my own when I first left university, because the system didn't allow women to do that. We are the age group of women who have fallen into that crevice, that huge place where that people have forgotten about, where we have fought for our rights all the way through. And I think the government thought we were going to go quietly. I think they thought we were the place of least resistance. And actually, we are determined to show them we're not going quietly, we're not going anywhere, and we're going to be noisy about it, because it is, it's an injustice against us. It is, I can't think of all my words this morning, but it is definitely discrimination against us as women. And it's like they seem to think that having made that decision, it's not a manly thing to go back on it. And what I see is women in government now backing it up for their own career opportunity. They're not supporting women. And I feel very, very strongly that we as women, you know, we've banded together as Back to 60 and various other groups as well, because of the total injustice of it.
And can I ask, what year did you actually retire?
I've not retired. I mean, I have my state pension now, but I'm not retired. I can't afford to live. You know, the state pension is not something you can live on.
No.
You know, it's only $9,500 a year or something. And, you know, the national living wage is supposed to be £20,000 now. And the minimum wage is $12,500. You can't live on your state pension. And, you know, my work pension was invested in Equitable Life, which went down the toilet. So, you know, I did what I thought was right and invested in a pension plan that was very poorly cared for, if you like, by the local authority. And I've ended up with a paltry amount of money a month, which means I still claim housing benefit on top of that, because my income is so low.
Right. Well, I want to come to the issue of the impact at the moment of the rising prices and so on, but let me come back to that, because I did want to ask you this. In 1970, there was the Equal Pay Act. Now, that Equal Pay Act should really have had some impact on the work that you were engaged in your professional career, but was there ever any impact, to your knowledge, of the Equal Pay Act on the work that the income that you were entitled to from the work that you were doing?
I certainly don't remember any of that. It wasn't something that was on my horizon at all, because I worked, my husband was a farmer, tenant farmer. So I worked for him on the farm. I worked in the office, I did all the accounts and stuff. And then I did, I did my own professional work. And then I was also a home economist. So I did stuff, I did cookery demonstrations and things in the evenings at home. I did everything to work around my children to earn some money to pay for their things. So I never thought about equal pay at the time. Having said that, my daughter has had issues with that. In this century, she's had issues with equal pay, not being paid the same as the men who are equal to her in the office.
Yes, which will mean that there's the impact ongoing, therefore, in terms of the pension rate that will accrue to her upon her retirement.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because the equal pay comes in 1970, which of course is a positive advance, but it can only, and it's a good advance on paper, but it's a good illustration of how putting something on paper is the number one step. It's the first step, not the final step, and that action has to therefore be taken to implement the law. Yeah. So let's come then to the situation now, because we know that prices are going up. There's recognition of inflation, and there's recognition that this is impacting already and that people are in financial difficulty. So how is this impacting on you at the present time, and how do you envisage it impacting in the future?
Well, at the present time, like this week for me is my week 4 before I get my state pension again next week, and I have no money for food this week. That's how it's impacted on me. My electricity bill has doubled in a year. I have night storage heaters here, which aren't very efficient, but it's a rented flat. And I only ever have one of those on, and it's only ever on low. I don't heat the rest of the flat at all. I've cut back so much on my usage of water, so I only flush the toilet twice a day, but it's only me here in the flat, so it doesn't really matter. I only shower twice a week when I wash my hair. But so actually, you know, I think my bill is like, I don't know, 70, 80 pounds for half a year at the minute. And only £7 of that is actually the water. The rest of it are the standing charges. So, you know, I can't do anything about the standing charges. I can't save on that. So, and because my usage of electricity and water is lower, I can't get any help for my bills. So it's like you're on a low income, but you use less, but that takes you below the level at which you would get any support from, say, the water company. So I find, I mean, I at the moment, I am just about getting there. But what happens when the electricity goes up again in September? I don't know. I mean, I've been sitting in the dark rather than turn the lights on.
Well, actually,
you know, so, and you know, whilst I do have a small car, it's 10 years old now, but I do have a small car because my son and granddaughter live on a farm. I need to get there. And I currently work one afternoon a week in a friend's business, teaching children how to cook. I need a car to get there. There's no public transport around here that would get me there. So, you know, it's it's frustrating because I think, well, where else can I make savings? Back in the spring, I actually bought some new underwear, the first time for 10 years. I've been wearing the same old knickers for 10 years, right? And I thought they were fine. When I got the new ones, I realized they weren't fine. But it's like, oh, all of these things that you take for granted, at least I did, I took them for granted when I was younger and had more money. I took buying all that stuff for granted, and now I don't. And it makes, I don't know, I just, I live in quite a wealthy area here, and it's, I exist. I don't have a life. I exist. I don't have holidays. I don't go out. The local theatre's closed anyway, but I used to go there to watch a film periodically that was £5 for a pensioner. That's closed at the moment. And well, I could walk there, that was fine. But now it means driving to another town and paying what, £12–15 to go to the cinema. That's not happening. So and yeah, so I feel forgotten. I feel like people seem to assume that once you're retired, life is a certain way, and it isn't. I could live another 40 years. So would I want to live another 40 years like this? No, I don't. Do I want to live another 40 years with my family? Yes, I do. And living to me means being able to go and have a cup of coffee with a friend. It means being able to go and see a friend. It means being able to, if I'm staying with a friend, buy her a bunch of flowers. They're all small things, really. But at the moment, I have to really think hard about that. And as a result, I have a credit card debt now that I have absolutely no chance of paying. So, yeah.
Actually, I've got some other questions, but apart from everything else, which is crucial, the issue about the standing charges, the standard charges on bills is really crucial, because what it means is that there needs to be attention paid to that component of the bill as well as the other component. And it must be possible for government to calculate when somebody is in need of a recompense in relation to that aspect of the bill. But then also there's the issue about, are those standard charges, how are they calculated, for example? But let me just go back to the government. Do you believe that the government could have done more in terms of alerting you and women in your situation to this change under the Pensions Act of 95 and then 2011?
Absolutely. We all have a national insurance number. It's not difficult to, the government have all our details. To think that we keep everything private, it's a misnomer. The government know who we are, where we were born, when we were born, national insurance number, NHS number, all of those sort of things. They know all of that. They have access to that information. It's not rocket science. And yes, some people moved in that time, but they should have written to us at the very beginning, and they didn't. And that's my main kind of issue with this, is that there were plenty of years in which they could have written, but they didn't. But actually, they should have just written to all of us at the very beginning.
I understand that the number of women who've been impacted by this is 2.7 million. What about the argument, well, writing 2.7 million letters, because this was 95 is just about the time that the email was coming in, actually.
Yes.
And what about the argument, well, 2.7 million letters, it'd be a bit of a stretch for the government?
I don't agree with that at all. I think with the billions and billions of pounds of taxpayers' money that they waste every year, and COVID's a prime example of that, I think that's no. I mean, that's just an excuse. And, yeah, that's just an excuse.
Right. Well, are there any measures that you consider Parliament could have taken in relation to this particular issue to ameliorate the impact, or to notify of the impact, or take some steps that would have meant that the 2.7 million women wouldn't be in the position that you are now?
I think when this first came to light and we first started banding together to not just complain, but campaign for ourselves, they could have listened. They could have listened, but they didn't. They dismissed us. And some of the examples of the way some of these MPs dismissed us is horrifying to me. They're talking about human beings here, and they're talking about, they were talking about women as if we were, well, I felt, my opinion, I felt as though they were talking to me as though I was stupid. Now, I'm lots of things, but stupid isn't one of them. And they could have listened. We've already been to court about it, and we were not heard, and we were dismissed. Again, my opinion. And so there have been many times in the last 10 years when recompense could have been made, changes could have been made, help could have been put into place. But we're talking about a Tory government that's been in for 12 years, and that doesn't fit with their mantra, doesn't fit with their beliefs or values that we support people who are less well off than ourselves. So I believe it's a political decision, I believe.
Well, the CEDAW People's Tribunal was held last year, and the report that came out was this proposition that we need a Women's Bill of Rights to follow through on the United Kingdom's undertaking that it would introduce CEDAW into domestic law. Do you consider that a Woman's Bill of Rights incorporating the provisions of CEDAW and the general recommendations arising out of what the committee has said in relation to the generally and the United Kingdom, do you consider that would have any value or positive impact in this country, a Women's Bill of Rights?
If it doesn't just remain on paper, you know, as we were saying earlier, stuff on paper is fine. It's about taking action in accordance with what's on the piece of paper. And this needs to be, the information about this needs to be spread far and wide. So in many different forms, so that women are educated as to its existence even. You know, I have talked to many people, many women friends about CEDAW. They have no idea. And I think, you know, we do need to never assume that somebody is on social media, never assume that people, you know, use the computer, never assume anything, you know, make sure that the information is disseminated in every single form possible so that because knowledge is empowerment. And, you know, I talk to my daughter about this all the time. My daughter is 37 and she's experiencing stuff that she shouldn't be experiencing as a woman right now. And which, if I give her the information about CEDAW, she then has the power to act upon that in her situations. I think our assumption that the world is better now than it used to be, actually for women, in lots of ways it is, but in lots of ways it's so not.
Right. Well, now, are there any final wrap-up remarks that or issues that you'd like to raise with the tribunal this morning?
No, not at all. No, I'm all done.
Good. Okay, thank you. I must just say that your comment about knowledge is power always strikes a note with me, because there's a very famous case, Sophia Jex-Blake and 6 others. It's reported in 1860, and the women wanted to be acknowledged as persons so that they could attend the University of Edinburgh, which Sophia Jex-Blake was already attending, doing medicine. And one of the members of the House of Lords in that case made exactly that comment, knowledge is power, and in the next breath said that women were not entitled to go to university. There were 2 judges that dissented from that and said that women are persons and therefore entitled to go to university, but they were in dissent, not in the majority. But it just strikes me so ironically that a judge could say knowledge is power and then deny both the knowledge and the power to women. And so therefore, thank you for making that point again.
You're welcome.